Bill Friedman spent decades teaching casinos how to trap you inside. The first time I walked into one of his designs, I spent 45 minutes looking for the exit. Not because I was winning, not because I was deep in some flow state at the blackjack table. I genuinely could not find the door. I walked past the same slot machine, a Wheel of Fortune with a cracked plastic shell, 3 times before I realized I was just going in circles. A security guard eventually took pity on me and pointed left, past the craps tables, past the sports book, through a corridor that somehow looped back toward the center of the building before finally spitting me out into a parking garage. I had been in that casino for 4 hours. I thought it had been 90 minutes. That wasn't an accident. That was temporal disorientation, a documented psychological phenomenon that Friedman weaponized into architecture. Everything about the layout of that building was the result of decades of deliberate, documented, field-tested design. A design that was specifically engineered to make me lose track of time, lose track of money, and keep moving through the room. Bill Friedman published his first major findings in the 1970s, after years studying which casino floors actually made money and which ones didn't. His conclusion was counterintuitive, and for the time, genuinely radical. The more disorienting a casino, the more profitable it was. He called his design philosophy the maze layout, and the rules were specific. Ceilings had to be low, no higher than 8 or 9 feet, because high ceilings make people feel exposed and aware of themselves. Corridors had to be narrow and winding, so you were never looking at the whole floor at once. You should never be able to see the exit from where you're standing, and exits should be obscured entirely, ideally behind rows of slot machines positioned diagonally to break your sightlines. He called those machines blockers. To understand why Bill Friedman became so influential, you have to understand the era in which he was working. Today, casinos collect enormous amounts of data. They can track how long people play, which games they prefer, how often they return, and even how they move through different parts of a property. But when Friedman began studying casinos in the 1960s and 1970s, much of that information simply didn't exist. What he did have was observation. Lots of observation. He spent years studying casino floors, watching customer behavior, comparing profitable properties against struggling ones, and looking for patterns that most people overlooked. While architects focused on aesthetics and managers focused on operations, Friedman focused on behavior. He treated casinos almost like laboratories. Every path people walked, every place they stopped, every area they ignored, every minute they stayed. To him, all of it was data. And the pattern he believed he found was surprisingly simple. The most profitable casinos were often the ones where guests felt completely immersed in the gaming environment. Not comfortable, not relaxed, immersed. The distinction matters. A comfortable environment encourages people to enjoy themselves. An immersive environment encourages people to lose awareness of everything outside the experience. That's what Friedman was trying to create. Imagine walking into a building where every direction looks roughly the same. Rows of slot machines stretch into the distance. Flashing lights repeat in every section. The sounds of jackpots and electronic chimes come from all directions. There are very few visual landmarks. Nothing that immediately tells your brain where you are relative to the entrance. Nothing that reminds you how long you've been there. Psychologists sometimes describe this as environmental absorption. The more attention a space captures, the fewer mental resources remain available for monitoring time, planning departures, or evaluating the bigger picture. In everyday life, our brains constantly use environmental cues to stay oriented. We notice windows and sunlight. We remember where we entered a building. We identify landmarks. We track distance traveled. These cues help create what researchers call a cognitive map, an internal representation of where we are and how to navigate back. Friedman's layouts worked against that process. The gaming floor was intentionally designed to weaken the formation of strong cognitive maps. Instead of creating memorable landmarks, many areas looked remarkably similar. Here's the part where I have to correct something. If you've read anything about casino design before, you've almost certainly heard that the hideous carpets are intentional, a deliberate psychological weapon to make your eyes snap back up toward the machines. The problem is that Bill Friedman, when asked directly, said carpet was never a consideration in his research. Casino operations people, when pressed, give a much less cinematic answer. Busy patterns hide stains. Roger Thomas was not a gambler. He was an interior designer, hired by Steve Wynn in the late 1990s to redesign the Bellagio. He raised the ceilings. He opened up sightlines. He brought in natural light through skylights and glass walls. He installed live trees, real flowers changed daily, and commissioned original artwork. He put clocks in visible locations. He made the exits easy to find. The casino industry thought he had lost his mind. The Bellagio opened in 1998. It became the highest-grossing casino in the world within 18 months. Thomas documented behavioral observations of how guests moved through different casino environments. The findings, published through the UNLV Gaming Research and Review Journal in 2002, demolished the maze. Guests in playground design spaces stayed longer and returned more frequently. Guests on Friedman floors reported feeling watched and manipulated. Guests on Thomas floors reported feeling like they were treating themselves. After the success of the Bellagio, several major casino markets used regulatory frameworks to explicitly prohibit Friedman-style design elements. Singapore's Casino Control Act requires casinos to have clearly visible exit signage, accessible natural light, and clock visibility from the main gaming floor. Macau followed with similar provisions in 2019. The UK's Gambling Commission had already gone further in 2005, requiring that all licensed casinos make clocks visible and keep exits clearly signed. The American market, notably, has no equivalent federal standard. Nevada has no requirement for visible clocks, accessible exits, or daylight. Some of the most Friedman-compliant floors on Earth are still operating, right now, on the Las Vegas Strip. The last time I was in a casino, I paid attention differently. I noticed the ceiling height before I noticed the games. I found the exits immediately, not because they were easy to find, but because I was specifically looking, which is not the mental state the building was designed to encourage. I still lost $80 in 40 minutes at a blackjack table. The design literacy didn't make me smarter at the game. It just made me more aware of the container. But I found the door on the first try.